All right, thank you. And once again, this is the Digging Deeper session about required, acceptable, and unacceptable forms of support for candidates who are completing the CalAPA and the CalTPA. The CalAPA for administrators. Most folks are very familiar with that, 3 cycles that a candidate completes. And then we have CalTPA and the education specialist CalTPA. Our general education CalTPAs have to do with, we will have a PK3 in operation next year. We're field testing and working on that now, multiple subjects, single subjects, and world language. And for those of you that are unsure, there is a world language and single subject seminar tomorrow afternoon that's going to talk about the transition from this year to next year. And then the education specialist Cal TPA, there are 2 that are in operation right now, 5 that will be in operation versions of the assessment for next year. So that's our emblems. And here's our CTC Performance Assessment Development Team. We have a group of folks that come together from a variety of different experiences. We have a couple of, I think I saw Heather and I saw Julie. I didn't know if I saw Zoltan. Heather and Julie, would you like to unmute and say hello?
Hi, everybody. I'm Heather Kennedy. I'm one of the consultants with performance assessment, and I usually support our ed specialist programs with CalTPA for mild, moderate, and extensive support needs. And then I am also working a lot on the development of our ed specialist performance assessments for early childhood special education, visual impairments, and deaf and hard of hearing, along with all of the work around our new literacy performance assessment that will become operational this year.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Holmes. I'm another one of the consultants on the performance assessment team. I'm generally supporting with Gen Ed, single subject world language, multiple subject, as well as the PK3. That's currently in field test, working on that to go operational this coming year. It's great to be here. Send it back to you, Marissa.
Okay. Let's see. We have our partners in this work, our evaluation systems team with Pearson. I think Lori is here today. Lori, would you like
Hello.
to say hello?
Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Marissa. Hi, my name is Lori Thornley. I'm a program manager with Evaluation Systems. We are the technical contractor for for the commission and all of their performance assessments and examinations. Glad to be here.
Lori, was anybody else from your team here or you?
Not today. You're
Okay,
stuck with
perfect.
me.
We appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And we have 2 guest speakers that are going to be sharing some best practices and ways to support candidates. We have Ellen for supporting the Cal APA and Amy K for Cal TPA. Would you like to unmute and say hello?
Hi, everybody. It's really exciting to be with you today to talk about what's going on in our world at Riverside County as we continue to improve our supports for CalAPA.
And I'm here from CalPoly Humboldt, and my name is Dr. Amy K, and I will be talking to you about CalTPA and acceptable supports.
Right. Well, those introductions are, thank you for those introductions. And shall we jump right in for, oh, actually, apologies. If you could in the chat, just put your name and your institution so we can have a nice record from you about who attended here this afternoon. We'd greatly appreciate that. And with that, Ellen, are you ready to talk about Cal APA?
I am.
All right.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. And again, I am here representing the program from Riverside County Office of Education. Oops, let me make sure I can do my slides. And to start off, I want to make sure I acknowledge my what I call dream team. We have what we call our CalAPA support team, which consists of myself, I am a retired assistant superintendent. And I've been working with our COE since 2019. And it's been, for those of you that are in the trenches, this is some of the best work I've ever been part of, and really excited to be part of it. And I also have on my team Dr. Diana Walsh Roos, who is also a retired assistant soup. She's also a scorer for CalAPA, and she's also an instructor in our program, as is Cindy Woods, who's a retired assistant superintendent, and she was a former scorer and she's an instructor. And Bernie Vidalis, who's a retired superintendent and is a scorer for CalAPA, and is also a past instructor. So we have quite a outstanding team to work with our candidates. And what we do is we facilitate the workshops for each cycle before they begin. We facilitate small group and individual support sessions as our instructors indicate they're needed. And we're just available to answer candidate questions and concerns as they go through the program and complete their CalAPA field work. So this is our program at a glance that we started in 2016. We are currently the largest program in the state. Our current program enrollment is 192 candidates in 8 active cohorts. We have a co-instructor model, which is very attractive to instructors. So we have a team for each course. We are an accelerated program, so each course is only 2 Saturdays about once a month, and our candidates complete it in 16 months. We have a real intention around continuous improvement. And some of the biggest drivers of that is our candidate feedback. We gather qualitative data after every course, every CalAPA support session, and every completed cycle. And we use this data to refine our courses, supports, and strengthen our candidates' experiences. And we use our CalAPA data to identify areas of strength in our program, as well as areas that we need to improve. We organize data for our CalAPA team and for instructor review, and we use it to revise course and workshop content, activities, and strengthen our supports. So this is just a visual of what the support system looks like per cycle. And our courses are divided, one cycle 1 is completed in 2 courses as field work with steps 1 and 2, and then steps 3 and 4. So everything in green is what the CalAPA team is responsible for, and everything in blue is the instructors. So the first thing is that they attend a workshop either for cycle 1, we do 2 workshops before their first class, and they get a strong foundation. And we really do deep dives into the CalAPA rubrics, and we look at some previous candidate submissions, and we really try to support what the work's going to look like as they move into their courses. And then they go to their first day. There's some reinforcement of CalAPA built into each day. Day 2 always includes a peer review process, which we'll talk about. And then when they turn in their final draft to instructors, the instructor provides feedback on a program rubric. And based on that, the instructor may assign a small group support session, which we will facilitate. And it is based on the feedback that they've gotten. If they need more intensive support, it would be an individual support session, but the instructors decide what level of support based on their feedback. So over the course of our program, in thinking about when I first got to the program, I was CalAPA. It was non-consequential then. We really were building the train as people were, embarking on it. So I've seen some really exciting shifts happen since the beginning. So we've shifted from focusing on passing scores to emphasizing the underlying CalAPA foundational leadership skills, collaborative learning, peer support, from collecting data to actually using data, for the CalAPA consultant feeling responsible, being responsible for results, to really a collective responsibility shared by instructors, our team, and our candidates. We had more of an isolated approach to CalAPA preparation, and now we've really integrated that throughout the program. We've really worked on, instead of it just being passive learning, to active learning, where we're incorporating scenarios, role plays, discussions, and reflections. Not just focusing on activities or strategies, but systems and processes to support successful implementation of those things. Instructor teams working in isolation, and now we have a lead instructor system that supports all instructors and to provide consistency. Limited feedback opportunities to continuous feedback loops with differentiated support. So when Marissa asked me to participate in this, I was thinking about what practices would I share with you? And I wanted to share some that I think give you a broad range of the kinds of things that we feel are really making an impact on the candidate experience. So I chose our candidate communities of practice, our Cycle 1 data scenario practice, using AI as a candidate feedback tool, and our lead instructor system. So the first one is candidates communities of practice. So when we get a cohort, we pre-group them into what we call a community of practice of at least 4 candidates and no more than 6 before orientation. And they will stay with this community of practice throughout the duration of their program. And during our orientation, we really hone in on how important the COP is to a successful candidate experience, and that we talk about the networking and the collaboration that are really important. But we also really reinforce the power of and responsibility of an effective COP and each member's responsibility to be part of that. We give them some ideas about how their COP can operate and function. And then during their courses, the instructors will, when they do breakouts, have them mostly in their COP, not all the time, but just so we continually strengthen that support piece. And we've gotten feedback that they overwhelmingly rate the COP as a critical support for their program success. And actually, we've even had, it's interesting, some COPs create norms, if that sounds familiar to those of you in their APA, where they want to be accountable, that they want this COP to really accelerate their learning. So that's candidate COPs. So another practice I wanted to share is something we're doing with Cycle 1. We provide 3 workshops for Cycle 1, an intro to the CalAP and understanding the Cycle 1 required data evidence. And then the second one is Cycle 1, Steps 1 and 2, Workshop A before first course. And then the third one is Cycle 1, Steps 3 and 4, Workshop B before the second. And at the intro workshop, they start building a collaborative submission using a scenario that includes a California indicator and site data. And they keep building this scenario submission throughout the 3 workshops and in between. So I have a couple links here, so I want to show you what that looks like. Well, over here in the visual, you can see in this document, we're using a Google Doc with tabs. We have 3 cohorts worth of candidates, and every cohort, A, B, and C, has a COP1, a COP2, 3, 4. So these 3 cohorts are working on math progress. These 3 are working on conditions and climate, which is suspension. This one's elementary. These 3 are working on college and career, and these 3 are working on EL progress. So what the document looks like is a scenario, fake data, giving them an elementary school demographic look. Then we ask them to, in their COPs, start looking at the patterns and trends. We give them data in math performance. And then we kind of take them through the practice around the patterns and trends, identifying a subgroup, what additional data would give them more information. Then they start thinking about crafting what would be their qualitative data collection plan. What are their questions? Who can help? What process tool would be the best way? And then they continue to work through this as part of their practice. And the second time, we take that same data piece, but we add in qualitative data. So they're looking at this is not robust qualitative data. This is just a scenario, and we tell them yours is going to look much deeper, but just so they can go through the practice of looking for contributing factors. So they work together on this, and these are the exact questions that are on their template, and they then at some point will do a practice problem statement. Now it's at a superficial level because it isn't the in-depth that they're going to, but we feel like it has given them a real opportunity to feel what these cycle one is, and to kind of grapple with data and take that back and apply it to theirs. Another support we have, which I'm sure all of you are grappling with yourself, is the emergence of AI. And since it is here, and we did have instructors say, I feel like this submission is feeling very AI-ish and things like that, we had a discussion. And we decided to approach its availability by harnessing it as a candidate tool. And we're calling that authentic intelligence, and as part of the human intelligence versus a negative way to do the work for them, which is really artificial intelligence. And so we really emphasize human first, human last, and that this is a tool. It's not a replacement. And so we embedded this tool into our peer review process because we wanted it to be guided and structured. We didn't want them to go into the wild, wild west and not have a way to work with AI in a productive way. And it is optional. It is not required that they use this tool in the peer review. So I wanted to show you what it looks like, what this tool kind of looks like. We give them a prompt for each rubric of CalAPA. And we tell AI, you are an experienced reviewer of CalAPA Cycle 1. Use the following constructs to evaluate and provide the candidate authentic feedback on their submission. And in the feedback, so here's all the criteria for 1.1. In the feedback, make sure to highlight how the submission includes evidence that the construct was met, which constructs are not met, and where they will want to focus to improve. And we tell them, do not hallucinate, because AI has a bias towards the positive. They will look for stuff that may not be there. If there is no evidence, say there's no evidence. And this is what the candidates get back. So it takes them through that rubric and gives them some another set of eyes. So in our peer review process, they do it first to their peer, then they put in the peer's narrative or with that prompt and get this back, and then they can validate whether and it's their take on, is this good feedback? It's not just take it as gospel, because again, this is it's important for us to respond to what the feedback is and to make sense of it, and not to just say, okay, this is what it should look like. No, it's a tool. So that's that practice that we started with the CalAPA team piloting. We didn't put this out until we really played with it and practiced it. And we've had some great success, and now it is program-wide. And the final strategy, because we are a large program and we're expanding, We currently have 3 sub-cohorts within each cohort with 20 to 26 candidates in. So, we have a lot of moving parts. So there are 3 sets of co-instructors for each course, and we've recruited many new instructors. And we decided we needed a system and a process to ensure consistency and quality of our program. And I was sharing before you guys came in that expansion is a blessing, but it needs to be done well. And our director keeps telling us we're going to expand at the speed of excellence. So we keep looking at that through that lens. So lead instructors are instructors of the courses that we've identified, and they've agreed to be the lead. They meet with me about every 2 months, and we review new data. We discuss instructor support, candidate issues, how to strengthen courses. Each lead instructor meets with their instructor team before the course, during the course, after the course, and if there is a CalAPA, if it is a CalAPA course, we do a calibration meeting for instructor feedback. We've created a lead instructor checklist that I just wanted to show you quickly that we're building together, which gives every lead, here's the things that instructors we found they need before, during, and at the end. And I think one of our strengths with this system is we are a practitioner program. So we have, working educational leaders in our program. And we've been able to recruit and retain, sitting superintendents, sitting assistant supes, because of the support the instructors receive so that the talents of our instructors, it's not creating the course. They have a foundation, they can make it theirs, but they're not spending hours and hours. So we really feel that's important so that we can bring in top-notch people into our program. And this is just a sample piece of how we organize CalAPA data. So this is what we call range of scores. So this is one cohort's range of scores. So on this axis, you see each of the rubrics for cycle 1. And then this is how many candidates. So 7 candidates on 1.1 scored a 4, 9 scored a 3, 2 scored a 2. So 4s are blue, 3s are green, 2s are the mustard color, and 1s are reds. So we really utilize this to see where is our support strong, where are candidates doing well, and how do we strengthen these areas that aren't doing well? And that's kind of that feedback loop for continuous improvement. And that's that. So I just hope that, I don't know if we have any time for any questions, or I did put my email in the slide decks if you want to contact me or have any discussions, or I'd just love to learn how other people are approaching this too. So I'm going to stop sharing. There we go.
So I'm just watching the chat, and I saw a question come in about clarifying what you meant by the peer review process. Fall, was that answered for you, or do you want some more clarification?
Clarification is a fascinating process. I wanted to hear about it.
Okay.
So peer review is a process where the candidates on their second day, there's a time frame built into that day where they exchange their steps, their templates. So it's usually, steps 1 and 2 in one course and 3 and 4 in another, and they give feedback to their peer. And so we have a structured process to do that. We have tools to do that. And then we added in the AI part to, after they've read their peers' narrative, they've identified areas that they need to strengthen or areas that were really strong. Then they can build in the AI component to get more feedback. Does that help, Paul? Okay, okay, good. I think I see another question about candidate COPs changing. Ruth, yeah, we do. We will have, cohorts, uh, either pauses, drops, extensions, things like that. And we try to start out with at least 4. So we maintain, if it goes down to 2, we might combine, but it doesn't happen that often. And I have asked somebody if they wanted to move. I had a pair. No, we love working together. They got very, like, I wanted to move one here. And so they get very connected in their COPs, which is what we want. All right. And if you think about, I think Marissa has the slide deck to share. And if you think about anything else you'd like to chat about, you can email me and I'd be happy.
Well, I saw one more really good question about AI and what platforms you're using. I know AI is a really big tool.
It is.
And there's a lot of uses for it. And so what you
that's
have
a
there was
yeah, that's a good good question, because we don't pick a tool for them. We show them. I think we show them Chat and Gemini and not sure. And we just give them links and they can choose the tool they want to use. What we have asked them to do is put it in twice, put it in Chat, put it in Gemini. You're going to get some different. And I think that helps them understand this isn't black and white. It's very gray depending on the knowledge inside the tool itself. So again, we really want them to, we're trying to be intentional with how to productively use AI, not just for CalAPA, but as a future leader, since they're going to be moving into positions where kids are going to have so much access. So how did we really help them? And this is our first big initiative, but we are looking at other ways to incorporate. And if you guys have other ways, I would love to have those shared, because it is here. I think helping them use it productively for the right reasons in the right way is important.
And one more question came in about feedback that instructors do give, and we will be talking about this when we talk about required and other pieces. But if you want to address some of the
Sure.
that candidates receive.
We have a program rubric which it has the elements of the evidence of, but it's only a 3-point. And it's really, it goes to, you're missing these kinds of things, you're missing, and the instructors highlight, this is why you're a 1, or this is why you're a 2. And a 3 means you're meeting the minimum, or you're on track, you're good to go. And so we utilize that, and then they give some additional comments that are specific just about some of the specific things that might be wrong, but they really put those into questions. Where is, how did you, so they're more questions than they are, you need to do this kind of thing. I do not see a correlation between your quantitative, qualitative, or things like that. So that's why we do a calibration, because we'll have 6 different instructors giving feedback using scoring with our program rubric. And we want to ensure that it is consistent, that the candidates get a quality, consistent feedback process result, and not just whatever the instructors decide to do. So we try to keep a rein on what that looks like and how they do it. And I can share, if anybody reaches out, I can share what our program rubric looks like if it's something you're interested in.
Right. Well, thank you very much. And I know we have a couple other questions, but I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for Amy K, Dr. Amy K, to talk about CalTPA, and we will have some more time at the end. Believe me, I'm going to be like the quickest presentation at the end because I know listening to faculty to faculty is the most valuable piece. So are you ready? Are you ready, Amy? Okay, I'll go ahead and share my screen with your presentation, and I'll probably do it not as gracefully as other people, but let's see here. Okay, let's see. And view slideshow.
And I will tell you that Ellen and I have never met before. And so the things that are the same are, I had to laugh because like we're going to hit on some same points, but we have never met before and never talked. So just serendipity.
Great minds think alike. And tremendous support for these assessments do look more alike than different. So absolutely, thank you for that.
All right. So at CalPoly Humboldt, we do CalTPA for the multiple subjects in two programs, single subject and ed specialist mild moderate. And as Ellen was talking about, we have gone from one person being in charge of TPA for everyone to more of a team approach. So there's a support instructor for each program, there's a coordinator, program faculty and program coordinators are involved with our TPA process and our continuous improvement, and talking about embedding it into coursework. We also have supervisors involved and our writing studio fellows. And I'll talk more about that all in a second. So we kind of think of it as an ecosystem, a net that catches our folks. We've got the support class, which is their main touch point, but we also have coursework integration, fieldwork integration, and then writing and technical support. The big thing is that student teachers are learning to be teachers. So it would be really weird if they already knew how to do everything. This is meant to be formative. That's why there's a cycle 1 and cycle 2. It's meant to have support and discussion. What we tell them is that you can always talk to us about good teaching, right? You can always call up the person next to you. Teaching is a team sport, is what we say. Just the way that you're going to steal that fabulous instructional strategy you saw in the classroom next to you, we are meant to learn from each other. This is not a got you where you have to come up with every teaching idea independently, because that's not how teaching works. But it's a assessment of teaching judgment. You ultimately are responsible for what happens in your classroom. You are ultimately responsible for what happens in your CalTPA, and it's meant to be an assessment of your judgment. So they all have a support class that is just their cohort, just their program. In that support class, they have a support class teacher. Next slide. Their instructor is going to make sure that we have all of this. So they're, of course, going to have access to the documents. We've made checklists based upon level 3 in the rubrics. Can you click on that, Marissa? Oh,
This.
sorry, that's my fault.
Let me request it.
Okay.
All right.
Try that again. Okay. So yeah, we've got a checklist for each cycle, for each program. It's not any different than what's in the assessment guide. It's the same wording, but some of them just like to see it in a checklist format. I know.
I'm reading it myself. I gotta stop.
Okay. Go back.
Sorry.
And then, of course, we've got some resources that is just a library for them to pull from. They have questions about all of those things. They know where they can get them. They have access to them in their Canvas courses. They have a Canvas course for their TPA support classes. Yeah. Thank you. In each program, they have meetings similar to Ellen. They're meeting about 6 times per cycle in their cohort. And in those meetings, they're learning about the CalTPA. They're getting general feedback about the last step. So, I looked at learning segments. We have folks who are still not writing ELD standards out completely. Reminder, that's on page 2 of the learning segment. Take a moment and edit that right now. And then we're going to preview the next step, and then we're going to peer review using the rubrics and also using the AI review. We have deadlines for each step to provide timing and feedback. The feedback is non-evaluative. Someone asked about feedback in the questions I noticed on Ellen's. And the kind of feedback we give is, this is the part of this question you haven't answered. This question is asking blank. So like rephrasing what the question is asking. Please look at the glossary. Please look at the assessment guide on this page. Those are our standard kind of feedbacks that we're giving on their documents. And it's even the little stuff. You have filled out the wrong document for the wrong program. Please refer back to your links. You left this blank on page 3. And sometimes they're just, I swear I didn't see that. Oh my gosh. It's just another set of eyes considering that this is so high pressure for them. They're so stressed. We also 24-hour or less response time so that they can email us questions anytime. We have weekly drop-in for questions and accountability. Some of them just show up and it's like, this is my weekly work time. I'm going to show up. They can show up in person or on Zoom. We also provide the same sort of question and response time for supervisors and faculty, and go to faculty meetings so that we can answer questions and tell them where we are in the process and make sure that we're all kind of speaking the same language. Again, that non-evaluative feedback that we just talked about. And then just like Ellen was talking about, we use AI for self-assessment and peer assessment. Here is your document. Here is the rubric. Look at the feedback that the AI gives you. Do you agree or disagree? Reflect on why. There's a lot of problems with AI, which we're really, really happy to talk to students about. We really talk about that AI is super problematic. It hallucinates. It's just flat out wrong about 15% of the time in really major ways. But it can help you get started if you're stuck. It can give you feedback if you have written something and need to see how close you are to the rubric. It can, right? It can help, like, we want them to be able to use AI so that they can use AI with their students as assistive technology. As AI can be a great assistive technology for working with students. It's all in how we use it. But yeah, that's the conversation we're having with them about AI. Good prompts, and then really critically attacking. Some of our folks tell us that they have a hard time looking at the blank page. And so they'll ask AI to write some portion of it, and then they will realize that it's bad and they will fix it. And it's easier for them to fix the bad than to look and start with a blank page. So that's the kind of the interesting ways that we are talking about AI with them. Next one. Yeah, Ella mentioned this, but we are much happier having it all the different ways that kind of surround them. So they're our TPA coordinator and our TPA instructors are working together with faculty to make sure that it all kind of works together. Next slide. So part of that coursework integration is we really thought about how can we use the TPE and TPA language in our courses. And we have some ways that we're doing that. So for example, they are writing TPA style lesson plans and getting a score using the rubric on a lesson that is not for CalTPA, on an entirely different subject than what their CalTPA lesson is, so that they can get really detailed feedback in a way that is not the lesson that they're going to use for CalTPA. We're having them really learn about rubrics and using them for assessment before they get to CalTPA, learning about UDL and supporting multilingual learners, and then practicing assessment analysis, having them bring in a stack of assessments and think about what they've learned about student learning and be able to talk about it in groups before they do that for CalTPA. I asked students, because I saw students, I had 2 course program meetings this week, and I asked, hey, out of these things that we do to support, what's valuable and how is it valuable? And they really talked about how nice it is when the coursework relates to the CalTPA, that they feel like they are really prepared. And I have to give kudos to our faculty for making those changes. All right, fieldwork integration. All right, so when the instructors meet with the CalTPA mentors and supervisors and introduce ways that they can and should support. So mentors must help candidates access student information. That's our first task, right? In both cycles is to access student information. And that's a must. And then mentors can help candidates co-plan. Supervisors and mentors can film for CalTPA and help toss audio and visuals. And we have that built into our contacts so that they are definitely checking audio and visuals and talking about the best angles and doing a test of the equipment. We have iPad kits for every candidate that they can check out from our library, so that doesn't have to be a barrier. Supervisors can film the CalTPA, which is great. We remind them, our folks, that they don't have to be videographers. They can have help with the technical parts. And then we have supervisors be elbow partners with candidates. After they have their videos, we train the candidates on how not to give advice, but how to ask questions based upon teaching rubrics so that the candidate has someone to talk through it with. And I will tell you that the tricky part is reminding supervisors of that constraint. You can't help them choose the clip. You can't help them choose what part of the clip to annotate, but you can ask them questions and just be that listening and thinking partner. Candidates say that this is really important for them not feeling alone. We also work with our writing studio on campus, and we love our partnership with our writing studio. So our writing studio fellows are either in their senior year or are graduate students, usually in English or history. They are not in any education field. They know nothing about teaching. They don't give any advice on teaching. They're all there to just support the writing. We have a faculty referral form, so faculty can refer candidates for writing help, writing level help on CalTPA or any other assignments. Our CalTPA Writing Studio Fellows read our assessment guide and know our rubrics, so they can talk with candidates about, like, I see this rubric language, I don't know what this means, can you tell me about it? It's pretty great. They can meet with the Writing Studio Fellows anytime in the process. It's fun because the Writing Studio Fellows are writing experts, but not education experts. So the candidates are, when they meet with the Writing Studio Fellow, they're like, I don't know what this means. And I don't know what I'm supposed to answer in this question. And the Writing Studio Fellow will be like, I don't know either because I don't know anything about education. Why don't you explain it to me? And they have like a little trick where they ask the candidate to explain it to them, and then they just put on the voice typing, and then it captures on in text everything the candidate just said about that prompt. And then they look at it together and be like, oh, is that what that's asking? And I think to me, that's funny that trick works, but apparently it does. The Writing Studio Fellows tell us. But they also can get technical help with their video clips. So they can get help if they go in with the times that they want. They can get help with the cutting of their video clips, and they can get help of compressing their video clips if they need to from their Writing Studio Fellows. And the next slide. This is the guidelines we have for our Writing Studio Fellows. Any questions about how we use Writing Center? Specific CalTPA Writing Center Fellows? Okay, next slide. That's it. That's all for me. Our plan is just to have a ecosystem, a network that catches them and helps them be their best teacher selves. Questions?
Well, I'm looking in the chat and people want your stuff. Your lists and your checklists and such. And would it be okay to share this presentation with folks?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, very good, very good. So thank you. Any other questions on ways to support candidates through the CalTPA for Amy?
And I see one of our program coordinators. Could do it without Bernie.
Well, there's no questions at this time. I'll go ahead and get back to my series from current slide. Okay, so here I have this presentation put together, and it is the information that is available to program coordinators on the website for required supports and acceptable supports and unacceptable supports. And when I was a program coordinator and instructor teaching CalTPA coursework, I used to show the candidates this stuff so they could know what I could do and what I could not do, what feedback I could provide, what things I was not able to provide to them, and just to justify some of the activities that we would do, so that way candidates could understand. So providing them access to those preparation materials. Candidates get access when they register, but you all have access to the password protected files where you can download the operational materials. it's important to be able to provide folks that. And one thing that I remember a candidate telling me that he did when he was completing his CalTPA is he kept a version of the CalTPA templates in Google, and he would take all his notes on one template and then like actually complete in a different template. So he was able to complete his stuff and kept it in that way. I thought it was a pretty good idea to keep himself organized. Explaining the CalAPA and the CalTPA leadership and instructional cycles. It just amazes me how many people think, oh, it's a test. They got to figure it out themselves. These are not these are performance assessments. These are designed to be done with supportive faculty, with cooperating teachers, with administrators that are supporting folks. It's meant to be done in that village. So explaining this stuff to them is pretty darn important. Engaging candidates in these formative experiences, right? For CalAPA, assignments on investigating, planning, acting, reflecting, talking about coaching, and for CalTPA, getting to know your students. And those first couple of weeks of student teaching, they should be completing some of these inquiries about the students in the classes they are in, how to reflect, video recording instruction, recording all formal observations so the candidates practice recording themselves and hearing themselves on video. So important. Ensuring candidates complete the assessment within a cooperating school or district during their clinical practice. And this is one that when I was at the County Office of Ed, I'd hear this from candidates. I'm done with my program. I just never finished my CalTPA and I don't know what to do. And they might be working as a teacher on an emergency permit and they get sent over to us from their district because they needed support, and they send people to the County Office of Ed when they need additional support. And so doing your absolute best to work with candidates so they can get these things done while they're in their program, and that they have the appropriate permissions to be video recording. So yeah, that's always a challenge as well for some candidates to get that permission for video recording, just making sure they understand what they need to do. Engaging candidates in those formative experiences, right? So supporting, analyzing data, assignments that plan, teach. So making this something that they build up to, work up to, not something that they do just at the end and on their own. Another required support is additional support focusing on understanding the cycles and rubrics if they were not successful. So if a candidate comes to you with a assessment that does not meet the minimum standard, or the secondary passing standard for that matter, for those of you that are in CalTPA world, understanding where they need to focus and what they need to do to move forward to resubmit for scoring. So these are all acceptable forms of support for CalAPA. It's a lot. I'm not going to read every single one of these things, but the suggestions and support that we saw today from both the RCOE program and Humboldt were just tremendous, and so many great ideas about how to work with candidates and what can be done. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of flip through these. And again, I have this presentation and I have a little folder, and folks registered with their email addresses so I can send this out to you. More acceptable forms of support. And then the CalTPA, acceptable forms of support. Amy shared some really great supports that folks can do, referring candidates to a writing workshop, right? We're recommending and providing specific assistance. Explaining how this one right here was a struggle for a lot of candidates, understanding that that we have these analytic rubrics and you have to meet every construct in a level 3 to be able to meet. Some candidates that I thought, well, if I do everything except for this bottom one, I'll get like a 2.7 or something of that nature. And there is no that. You have to meet everything in a 3 or else it's a 2. Just understanding how to move through these rubrics and having someone explain that is very helpful to candidates. Oops, did I go? Yeah, and more acceptable forms of support. But here's the fun part. Unacceptable forms of support. And this is always the question that we get, right? Providing candidate, just a second. Sincere apologies. The 8-year-old that just got home from school is saying, "What popsicle?" I was like, "Go get the popsicle, honey." Apologies. So this piece right here is the question that we get a lot about what can we say to candidates when they ask questions. And again, this is not designed to be done in isolation. It's not designed to be done completely alone. What I say to folks is coach people to get to the response themselves. And when you use questions to ask what someone understands, then using that, because there's no one way to do this, because every single person comes to these assessments from a different space. When I went to my admin program and had to do CalAPA, I had been a teacher, leader, I had been in all these different spaces for more than 20 years and had a doctorate degree and had run a program of teacher preparation at UC. And when I went to get my admin credential, I had a very different set of experiences than someone that might be a 3rd-year or 4th-year teacher going into an admin program. And so when I was being coached, I would get asked questions. Well, what do you think? How are you showing this information? How is this showing up in your response? And oftentimes you can, based on that response, get good information to be able to provide candidates with the resources they need. And sometimes it is just catching that something is not done, or that they address the first part of the prompt and not the second part, and some of those pieces. And truly, in all of this, you let your conscience be your guide. If you feel like you are doing this assessment and not the candidate, then that's too much support, right? If it's it needs to be the candidate demonstrating their best practices. So selecting their work for them, yeah, candidates really need to be able to show their best self, and they need to know and watch and see. And you can ask them a question. Do you really think that's no, don't say that one, I guess, because that gives it a little bit more of a, well, do you think that that's the best example of the work that you could do? And sometimes monitoring your tone and those, really think that, that might lead someone to think one way or another, especially as you as the authority, right, speaking to them. So asking candidates, is this your best work? Is this the best way that you did this? Are there 3 other ways? Here, let me put you in a group with some other candidates and you all can talk about this, and facilitating that space. Editing their response prior to submission. This is something that we ask faculty to not do, right? You don't want to get their submission, fix stuff, turn it around, because again, that's you're doing the work, not necessarily the candidate. So conjecturing that they would score this, or this is enough for this. What I would say is turn it around to the candidate, look at that rubric. Do you think that you met these constructs, and how? And by asking them and turning those rubric constructs into a how question and pointing to the evidence, can always lead the candidate to looking at their own work and doing some self-assessment. Institutional terms and definitions as substitutes for these terms. Again, this is more instead of saying, let me grade your, score your learning segment template, let me list your lesson plan, whatever it is that you want to switch out, and then using the institutional terms in place of those CalAPA, CalTPA terms to get around some of these pieces. And we're not really looking for that, again, because we're wanting to see the candidate's best work, not necessarily their faculty members' best work. It'll shine through when the candidates are able to turn around and do these things themselves. Offering a critique of their draft responses prior to submission. for official scoring that provides specific alternative answers. Okay, well, I know you did this, but why don't we do this instead? That right there, again, doing someone else's work for them, telling them what they should do, you providing that, it's not their best work, it's not them. And telling a candidate which video clips or work samples they should submit. Um, not to say that you can't watch their video clips with them, you can't look at their work samples, but if you say this one right here, this is it, right? Then it's you doing the work, not, well, which one do you think is the best one that would showcase your competency on this rubric or this construct, and having the candidate choose their own work. Again, that section of video clips, so faculty members sitting down watching a 40-minute video and saying, this right here, this is the part, right? That's not what we're looking for. And describing scenarios or hypothetical situations that are approximates for CalTPA. So if I were doing this, I would do this or this, right? Again, it's giving someone, you're not giving them the opportunity to work through it and to productively struggle through some of these things. You give them the tools and then allow someone to work through it. And that's what the performance assessment really is all about. And then uploading their responses for them. You'd have to be in their materials, their with their login. The candidates need to upload these things themselves. So you definitely can get support for them for IT. A lot of times candidates, like that Amy was talking about, candidates struggle with compressing videos, so getting support for them in that way, but to log in and upload their materials is not acceptable. So I did want to leave some time here, and we do have some time here for some more time in the some questions, but here are some CalPA emails. So the CalTPA email, and then as many of you know, in the administrative world, Gay Roby has retired, and so the CalTPA and the CASC email are now split and being responded to by different folks. So if you have any questions related to the CalTPA, there's that email address, the education specialist CalTPA email address, and then also the CalAPA. Sorry, I must have just read those backwards. But so the CalTPA, that's for all your general education, multiple subject, single subject, world language, and upcoming PK3 is CalTPA. CalAPA, again, past CASC email addresses for program questions. CalAPA questions go there, and then the Ed Specialist CalTPA email address there. And technical support from ES. Evaluation services or education services. I am just stumbling today. That popsicle thing messed me up. At pearson.com, and then their website there for exams. All right, so let me go ahead and stop share. And I want to make sure that we get to any questions that were left in the chat, and also anyone who would like to unmute themselves and ask a question of either commission staff or either one of our tremendous guest presenters. And another, just a round of applause for both of those presentations. They were very, very well done and well thought out, and your candidates are very fortunate to have you. I think we had one question that could be addressed by both presenters about concerns about candidates using AI or plagiarism in any coursework. Is there anything that you'd like to say to that question, either Amy or Ellen?
Well, I can start, then Amy can chime in. I feel like we were, as AI was becoming more of a prevalent tool out there, I had instructors coming, I think this is AI, I think this candidate, and because it doesn't leave a digital marker, it's difficult to say that, but we all know the language can be stilted and and very general and sound more like a term paper. So I think that really motivated us to come up with a way to capture the strength of AI in a productive way and let candidates know we know AI. Like, we get it. We're not just never seen this stuff before and don't understand what it's about, so that we could really use our time for using it in a positive way. And I think, the instructors will, we haven't had a lot. We've had a couple that say, I think this is AI. And we just problem solve like how we're going to deal with that candidate. Because again, we can't prove it because it doesn't leave a digital marker in a way that, with plagiarism or things like that can be a little, there's things out there. But I think we all know, and we just wanted them to know we know. But here's how it can really support you. So I know, Amy, if you wanted to add.
Pretty much exactly. We, in one of our coursework classes, we actually have them write a lesson plan using AI and then tear it apart. Like, what does AI do badly? Okay, it's too general. It doesn't understand time. It doesn't understand children. It makes stuff up. Um,
It does, it hallucinates.
it hallucinates. Like here are all the things it does really badly. How could we fix it using AI? Okay, and then we tried to like make the prompt better, and that gives us good parts, but it's just like it's so bad, right? That they go, oh, I know what this needs to have. But again, some of them prefer to tear something apart and edit it. And so they're purposely using AI to make something bad in order to edit because it's easier for them than composing from scratch. And that's okay. They still end up with something that they wrote.
Thank you for that. Joe, you have a hand up.
Thank you. So two questions. One was just how you balance not having CalAPA completely take over your program, right? Because I think there's important components that go into CalAPA, but there's also so many things that administrators need to know that are not embedded in there. So that was my first question, Ellen, of how you balance that. And then two is just going back to that feedback loop, just because the pacing of courses and pacing of CalAPA cycles, you know, is it ongoing instructional feedback along the way, or is it, more come at the end? They've engaged in the peer review, and then towards the end, now the instructor is gonna to jump in. So two completely different questions, but appreciate it.
Okay, Joe, I'm gonna give it a shot. There are very the balancing of CalAPA and it becoming the bigger piece of the program has been an ongoing discussion. We have had a turnover in instructors, and I feel like we've landed in a place where we are really looking at the foundational skills CalAPA is having candidates practice and learn about as the focus versus the test itself or the assessment. And we in our planning with instructors, it's an important thing. So we have, I feel like, a good balance. And then the instructors bring, what does this look like in real life? What does instructional leadership? What is data? What is, as well as other things, underlying foundations of equity is a really important through line in our course in our program beyond CalAPA, even though it's an important through line in CalAPA. So I think they get a balance, but it's a constant planning, revision, tweaking. We don't have we have a master slide deck, but we don't have a syllabi that stays stagnant. We are really responding as we bring in new instructors who bring to candidates a wealth of their experience. We want to keep content relevant and updated. So those course leads are doing a feedback loop with the instructors too. to make sure our content. I don't know if that helps, but I think initially CalAPA was an add-on when I came in, like, okay, now everything, and now I feel like we've been through the blending and the really looking at the deeper intention of leadership and those how it correlates with the CalAPA.
That's
And we do,
validating. Because I think what I hear from our participants is more integration of CalAPA, which I hear, and we want to do that as much as possible. But we've got to talk about building culture and building, behavioral supports and, understanding needs in special education too. So that's it's helpful to hear that it's a little
yeah,
bit of an ongoing growth process.
yes, it is. And I don't think it'll stop. But we also have two courses that do not have CalAPA. So we have two courses that kind of do the SPED, the LCAP, the HR kind of components. And we have a community parent engagement course that doesn't have CalAPA embedded. But I think like you said, with culture, I mean, you can make a really strong connection to CalAPA is how culture impacts implementation or how you use data or how so we really try to do that kind of deeper work without it just being, all right, get out your templates, la, la, la. So, and your other question, I'm sorry, I lost it, was.
Sorry, it was just when your instructors are in that feedback loop cycle. I know you had shared
Oh,
that graphic, but I was curious of where that falls
yeah,
into before and after peer review and AI and those kind
yeah,
of things.
it is. I think we want to continually work on that too. So we do have the workshops give foundation, right? And then we take a deep dive into other previous candidates. And now that we're building that kind of sample submission that I shared with you, it's getting them in the process. And what we do is say, you're going to do this together, then you're going to go back and do it on your. So that document I shared, I can go in and see what the CalAPA with those teams, those COPs have done. So I'll say between now and the workshop, work on this part in your COP. But peer review happens the second day. So it's the last day of their course. And they do it during the course, but they usually do not finish. So they have to get with their COP and do some more. But some of that is just giving them structures versus controlled time with us. So we're still working on that. So then when they do peer review, the next step is turn it into the instructor, get your final feedback. Then that leads into tiered support that I talked about, small group or individual.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brian.
Yeah, thanks. I just my question I think is just maybe to the entire group. Just as a new person interacting with CalAPA and Ellen, I loved your presentation. It's great, and I think there's probably a range of sizes of programs on this call. Ellen, sounds like yours is very large, and I think probably the program that I'm involved in, Shasta County Office of Ed, is probably on the other side of that spectrum. So some of the things are applicable, and some are probably need to be tweaked a little bit. But I was wondering, it seems with all of the cycles of the CalAPA, a lot of the programs have done work like creating supporting documents to the CalAPA, whether they're checklists, revision lists. I know we've gotten some. Joe has been great in supporting us from Contra Costa County with some of the stuff they've built. But I wonder if there's like some level of consortium. I know we've talked about a community of practice around this, of just like, hey guys, here's some things we've used, other folks have used that we can share. Some things are going to be applicable. Like again, Riverside, way bigger than we are here in Shasta County, where people are, I'm having to usurp a couple different roles within our program where there might be individual people in other programs, but just a consortium or something, or some level of shared expertise for how we can support and kind of, because I know with our candidates, we go through the assessment guides, and sometimes I'm like pulling out what little hair I have left on, hey guys, this is very specific in the assessment guide, but I think sometimes combining it with the level that they're going through these classes and all the different field work and stuff, that they just don't have time to read a 40-page assessment guide. I don't know how long the assessment guide is, but sometimes they're not pulling out those individual pieces, so I'm having to pull it out for them and kind of create my own documents. But I wonder if there's a repository of that other folks have worked on.
I don't know if there's anything like structured, but I found GoToPeople, and we do have what we call a support resource doc for each cycle that has step 1 support, step 2 support. So I mean, if I think sharing is caring. So, however, but I'd be happy to share anything we have, and I'm sure other people. And I would love, I've gotten some great stuff from people in this group. So,
Ronnie, did you have your hand up and then put it down? Did you want to
I
add
did.
something?
I was that kid in school who did this a lot. Like I didn't know.
You were just stretching?
Yeah. Well, I thought I had the answer and then I didn't.
Mhm.
No, I just want to kind of put a footnote on Ryan's comment. So Joe's in the room, Ryan's in the room, and we've been interacting with Colby, Dr. Smart from Humboldt County Office of Ed to do exactly what Ryan was referring to, which is to try to start a collaborative community of practice for people that do our work, and just kind of throw out an invitation, just as practitioners doing this work, to do things like share resources, support one another's work, brainstorm, come up with some creative solutions, provide some, whatever wisdom we all have, which collectively is a more than we have alone. So, so we're working toward that. I don't know, Marissa, if you have any suggestions for us. I certainly have a list of contacts that I can kind of share this concept with. I know that to kind of kick it off, the 4 of us were going to get together and just talk about what a community practice would look like for partners to engage in. So just want to hear your comments on that.
No, absolutely. And that sounds like a tremendous set resource and community for folks to come together in a space. And both CalAPA and CalTPA can definitely do something of that. And we would be happy here at the commission to be part of those groups. I don't know if you necessarily want us to lead anything. And of course, my gardener is going to today is not
want
my
to put
day.
any more work on you, of course, but oh yes, we love that.
Well, truthfully, it's like, the value that you have for one another, and then just having someone to answer official maybe questions and such, because you'll come up with the most creative piece. And that's why I think these sessions are so valuable, because we just check in with folks, they give you some really great ideas, and then you look at your context and say, oh, well, when I was in a county office, I was in a county office of ed in a rural space in Merced County with a different, group of candidates that I'm serving. And so how can I do this really great idea with my context? And so that's what these are all about. So if you are going to meet, please invite me, because I'd be happy to. And then also we talked about in the coordinator meeting, I think we now have our listserv for CalAPA that we'll be putting on our website. So if we do have that, you can sign up for the listserv, and then we can push out when meetings are going to happen. I know that the PK3 group does a really good job of these like monthly meetings where they just come together and have community circle time. And if folks are interested in doing something like that, I'd be happy to coordinate something like that, to be able to bring folks together more frequently to share great ideas and to support new coordinators as they enter the space and are working their way through the CalAPA or the CalTPA.
Awesome. Yeah, I see in the chat, some comments about a database. So I've been collecting a database. So thank you for that input. I also did leave my email in the chat as well. So if anybody's interested, please send me an email. Marissa will keep you obviously connected to this and you know, see what grows out of it. I think it'll be a great learning community.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm new to a lot of this work. I come behind Gay, and there's, that's a shadow that's just so far cast, and I'm doing my best. My biggest experience with CalAPA is doing the CalAPA while being in an administrative program just last year. So truly, I'm in that space of learning and wanting to build. But I did teach and work with CalTPA for many years before that. So and I'm seeing the connections between them, and I hope you all saw, just like what Amy had said today. Really, they didn't see each other's presentations, but great support. Looks the same, looks more similar than different. So, right.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much. Is there anything else? We have a few more minutes. Anything that didn't get addressed or any questions?
Can I ask a question, Marissa?
Sure.
Hi, this is Paul. I just took over the program. It's just been about 2.5 months now. So thanks for your sharing your details with me. Question, can I have Ellen or anybody in the group just jump in and talk a little bit about when we look at the scores the students have to get in order to pass cycle 1, 2, and 3, how do you lead that conversation without taking them to the rubric or getting into a place where you are stepping into what you cannot do more than what you can do? Does it make sense?
So are you, let me see if I understood your question. How do you talk about the rubrics and the
total points they have to earn? Yes. How do you do that?
Well, we kind of do a introduction to just the whole CalAPA system to lay a foundation around just what it is, what a score report looks like, how assessors score the rubrics, what the minimum passing, so some of the technical stuff. And then when we're going into the rubric dissection or analysis, we always start, we start with the threes and get the we kind of unpack the constructs, but they understand what the minimum score is just in the technical aspects of the assessment, but we also break down rubrics to understand the required evidence. I don't know if that helps, but
I think that is, I just did one the other day, so I wanted to make sure I didn't step into a place I should not. That sounded good. Thank you. I think I showed them an example. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we believe in our program that the CalAPA rubrics are the most important tool for them to digest. And when they're in peer review and they say, we don't really know, how are we going to give feedback? I said, all the assessors have is that rubric. So as much as they know, it's just getting them familiar with it,
Thank you so much. This was wonderful for me.
Good, thank you.
When I was teaching classes for CalTPA, I went through all of the rubrics, and many of you might have seen this before, but went through all the rubrics and turned all the constructs into questions, and then took a screenshot of the rubric and then put the questions with a little box underneath, because the thing that I would always get from cooperating teachers is I never had to do a TPA. I have no idea how to help someone. Well, right. That's, but now let's break this up. Now, what is this part that you have here? Can you answer if this is a manageable goal? Yeah, you can give feedback on those pieces. And the question is, is it a manageable goal? And it's how. And so they have to explain it and go through and using those rubrics as tools. And as I was completing the CalAPA myself, I actually did that. I went through the rubrics and turned them into questions myself and did that self-assessment as I was going through to make sure that I met the constructs as I was completing, and it was very, very helpful. So yeah, there's lots of really great tools and tricks and things that we can do if we all put our heads together and prepare teachers and administrators for the future of California. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for your attendance today. And I do have copies of the slides, and I am working with IT to get videos converted over to our YouTube channel. And hopefully we'll get that listserv in the PSD this week so folks can sign up and we can start sending out some good updates and messages for both for the CalAPA and get the TPA one going again. All right.
Thanks, Marissa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. It's nice to meet you.
Great to meet you as well.